So I am a massive fan of David Gordon Green's Halloween 2018, and I enjoy aspects of kills and ends, but I think he should stop doing these legacy sequels. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carter Walker. I love talking about movies, music, comics, and games, and I just got out of seeing The Exorcist Believer. I was a little late on this one. I was going to go see it last Thursday, but it didn't quite work out. So like I mentioned, The Exorcist Believer is directed by David Gordon Green, starring Leslie Odom Jr. and Ellen Burstyn reprising her role as Chris McNeil from the original Exorcist from the 70s. And if I'm being totally honest, I heard how small of a role Ellen Burstyn has, and I don't want to shatter anyone's expectations if you haven't seen it. Her role is very tiny in this movie. It is barely it's basically a glorified cameo. She doesn't do a ton in this movie, and her character isn't the most impactful, if I'm being quite honest. And I just want to set expectations right out of the gate for that. Sorry, I just found out one of my graded comic books is cracked for some reason. Anyways, so I'm gonna get this right out of the way. I'm not the biggest Exorcist fan. Last Wednesday or Tuesday was the first time I watched the original, and while I liked it, I enjoyed it. It I didn't see it early on enough in my life to have it be a horror classic. It didn't terrify me, although it is definitely the superior film to this one, and it is a very well-made movie. It's very disturbing, very scary, and the story of Father Karras and Father Merrin, Father Karras especially, someone who's lost their faith and then over the course of the film finds a way to regain his faith, to find a way to do and fulfill his purpose in life was very impactful for me because I'm someone who's very faithful myself. I really enjoyed that aspect of the film and I thought it was very poignant. And I would say Exorcist Believer completely does away with that. Kind of takes what's interesting about the first one, makes the first one stand out. Its tale of religion and its tale of here's this horrible thing that's happening contrasted with the nice young girl that Reagan was in the beginning, and her mom and everything is just going all to hell. And then here are just these vulgar, these vile things that are happening to this completely innocent girl. And here come these two priests, Father Karras especially, someone who is struggling with his faith, someone who just lost his mother. He's having a hard time with his faith. And over the course of the film, Father Karras finds the courage within himself, finds the faith in God to overcome the demon Pazuzu and cast him out, and even sacrifice his own life in the process, becoming a hero to Reagan and her mother, at least you'd think, and sacrificing himself and finding peace in his life. And that tale to me is just so well done and so impactful in the original Exorcist. And you cannot expect anything on that level in Believer. I adore Halloween 2018, like I said before. And I love what David Gordon Green and Danny McBride did with that movie. I really enjoy the whole movie. I think it is incredible. I am one of the few people I know that is just like, that is up there with the 1978 original. Blasphemy, I know. But what's interesting about this is that what worked for Halloween doesn't work for The Exorcist here. And well, David Gordon Green does his best to kind of match what Friedkin did with the original and try and do his best to kind of get in that headspace. It's not quite there. And so, while this review isn't very structured with positives, mixed, and negatives, I did like that there's maybe a little bit of effort there. I think, I don't know, dude. I'm trying my best to give credit where credit is due. And as much as I respect David Gordon Green for the first Halloween, I don't think he did a very good job with this one. However, the cast really tries their best, especially Leslie Odom Jr. and the two girls that play the main possessed girls in this film. They really tried their all. The other cast members here, unfortunately, are pretty weak. Ellen Burstyn is decent, but obviously she said in a million interviews that she did it just for the paycheck, which is kind of a bummer, but she's not in this movie a ton, so it doesn't make a difference. But Leslie Odom Jr. really does give a great performance, especially in the third act. There's a great moment where something is revealed about the past, and this God played a trick on you scene that's in the trailer, and he does a great job in that, and just is very visceral and is very just heartbroken, very torn up about it. And I really liked that. Actually, that part totally worked for me. I was like, I really was lost in the third act, and then that scene happened, and I was like, yeah, it's actually really good idea. That's actually really cool. I didn't expect that from this movie, so I was pretty surprised. Pretty surprised by that. Also, my last positive here that I can remember, I mean, the score is decent. The main Exorcist theme is great. The last positive that I can remember, there's actually a few decent scares in here. One of my favorite scares in this movie is Fielding is talking to his daughter, Angela, and in bed, and she's talking, and it does a switch, like shot, reverse shot. I don't know why I just couldn't think of the name for that. shot, reverse shot, and it's showing her in bed, and it shows him talking, and then her in bed, and then it shows him, and someone's behind him moving like a face, and then it shows her again, and there's no sound, nothing. There's not a big jump scare noise, and I was so relieved. It might not even. I wasn't scared, but I was like, that is so awesome. We need more of that, to where it's not horrifying, loud, ear-piercing noises. It's horrifying image, something to catch you off guard. More things littered in movies like that. I would love that, please. No more of these stupid jump scare noises. I can't stand them. And then there's also a jump scare that got me pretty good, if I'm being honest, where someone jumps at a door window, and it's basic, but it's pretty good. It's decent. It got me. It's loud, but I got to admit, it scared me, and everyone in the theater jumped. So, I mean, the theater was pretty packed. So, yeah. I just figured I'd throw that one in, throw the Exorcist Believer a little bone. And going into my mixed, again, like I mentioned before, I'm not the biggest fan of the original Exorcist. By no means do I think it's a bad movie. I just don't have any nostalgia or a very passionate opinion about that movie. So whereas someone who really loves the first Exorcist film, who goes in to this Exorcist Believer film and is just destroyed by the lore changes, or what, oh my gosh, what Chris says about the priests. I was actually kind of bugged about what Chris McNeil says about Father Karras and Father Merrin. She says that the patriarchy didn't let her witness the exorcism of her daughter, which in my opinion is kind of a stupid thing to say, since both Father Merrin and Father Karras both died during the exorcism of Reagan. So it just came off, that line came off as weird. It seemed very out of left field in this movie. Kind of bugged me, especially. So I can see a lot of people getting very upset at that. Also, with just some other changes to the lore, with just kind of how this movie is just kind of like throwing that story of faith and finding faith to the wind. And the main character, Victor, Leslie Odom Jr., has a little bit of an arc, like a tiny bit of an arc, not really, of believing, but it's kind of gracious to call it an arc. It was very base level. It wasn't really an arc at all. And my negative here is just kind of broad. The movie doesn't really know what it wants to do. It's all over the place. There's so many things happening at once, and it just seems like instead of naturally progressing towards, an arc of someone finding their faith through an exorcism, or maybe Victor regaining his faith, coming to peace with his life during the exorcism, which in my opinion is kind of what they were going for, but they didn't quite hit that mark. It's just kind of throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. You kind of get, and I might spoil a little bit of the Exorcist Believer here. So if you're looking forward to the Exorcist Believer, and you some reason haven't seen it yet, spoilers right now. So 3, 2, 1, spoilers. In the end of Exorcist Believer, they decide to do the exorcism, and the Catholics are like, nope, we're out, sorry. And so they're like, well, what are we going to do without the Catholics? So they assemble the religious Avengers. I'm not even kidding. They go around in a sequence, gathering up everyone throughout the film who has like talked to Victor, talked to Chris, and grab all the people who are religious and bring them into the Fielding's house, and they do the exorcism. And it is just so dumb. It's just so dumb. It's not, it just comes off as so freaking funny. I was laughing, like the whole theater was laughing. People were like, "It's the Avengers." I heard at least 3 people say it was like Marvel Exorcism. It was like Justice League Exorcist. My friend was like, "It's Captain America," holding Mjolnir. It's like Endgame. It's exactly what that is. And then there's a sequence where a Catholic priest comes in the door right when they meet him, and he comes in and he's like, "The power." He obviously doesn't say that, but he's like, "The Father, the Son," and it's like, it's a Catholic version of Captain America just busting through, getting ready to start baptizing some infants out here and committing exorcisms. So I don't know. It was so silly. It was so goofy. And it was just came out of left field. Did not work for me. And it didn't work because I'm a religious person myself. And I was like, this is so dumb. Like, it just seems like they didn't have a basis. They didn't have a goal, an understanding of the original Exorcist. And they were like, what's cool about the original Exorcist movie? The exorcism. And instead of having 2 priests, let's have a bunch of different religious people in here. That's my biggest complaint about this movie, is just the third act really goes off the rails. There is an interesting choice in the third act to be made where something happens and it just feels out of left field. This movie doesn't really feel like an Exorcist film. It just doesn't know what it wants to be. That's my biggest complaint. Is I don't think it's as terrible as everyone is saying. Then again, I don't have any original basis for the first film. I don't have a ton of passionate love for the first film. I think it's a great movie, but I'm not like emotionally connected to it, so I don't really mind. I didn't really enjoy it, but I didn't hate it. It's kind of like in the middle for me. So overall, The Exorcist Believer, it's nowhere near the greats of the first Exorcist film, but I don't think it's a train wreck like everyone is saying. It's just another, cut and dry studio possession horror film that came out in October. So if you're into those, you'll probably be into this one. It's not anything special, but I don't think it's terrible. However, it's definitely not very good. So overall, I'd give Exorcist Believer like a 4.5, 5 out of 10. There's a few things in here that I really like, but for the most part, it just kind of seemed like very underwhelming and very lackluster. So that's it for my review of The Exorcist Believer, guys. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Let me know it in the comments below. And I am watching a horror movie every single day, and today was Exorcist Believer. I guess I'm posting this tomorrow. Yesterday was Exorcist Believer. Who knows what I'll be watching today, but if you have any suggestions for horror movies I should check out in October, any movies that I should review, please let me know. I'm planning on doing a ranking at the end of this month, along with a Spider-Man 2 video game review later and a Mac Miller swimming album rhetorical analysis that I wrote for class. So I'm cheating, but Brecken, you can finally get off my back, and Caleb, you can finally get off my back as well. Anyways, guys, my name is Carter Walker. Thank you so much for watching and all the support lately. Have a great rest of your day.